hello everybody. I know you missed the music of the intro last Devrel show. It was not working for whatever reasons. I fixed it now and it is back. So welcome to the Devrel show. It's episode number 15. I cannot believe I'm already at episode 15. It seems like I started this show yesterday. By the way, it's not something that happened to me usually, but there is a lot of noise right now. There is construction next to my place, and this is the like loud construction moment right now because they are like putting like those huge pillar in the ground. So they're like basically like just hammering that thing. So I'm gonna try to mute myself as much as possible. I put all the like noise reduction that exists on the computer, on StreamYard, on my mic. Hopefully, it's not that too loud. It is super annoying for me. Hopefully, that's not going to be too annoying for you. But there's nothing I can do. There's construction right now, so hopefully that won't diminish the quality of the show. And sorry also for being a little late in the schedule. You know, life happen. Sometimes shit happen, and nobody's dead. We're here. We are in the show, and that's a good thing because we start with Toby, who is saying hello, everybody, everyone. And Toby was my last guest on the Devro show. We had a good show. That was nice. You know, I'm really privileged to be able to do that show, really talking about something that I'm passionate about, developer relation. But also, as I said many times, that show would be super boring if it was just me. It's all about the guests. They are the star of the show. They're the people that bring their flavor, share about your experience, and just share their wisdom. So, yeah, with that said, my guest this week, Linda, who are you?
Linda. Linda is a hmm.
That's a good question, huh?
Yeah, very good question. Linda is I think in one phrase, Linda is a person who loves life. Yeah.
That is such a good the answer. Actually, the question was not that bad too, but that is such a good answer. To be honest, when I ask that question, people always talk about, "Oh, this is what I do for work," which is good because that's a little bit like what I want people to talk about because we're going to talk about DevRel, but like not focusing on work, that's brilliant. I mean, as much as I love my job, I do that because I need to pay the bill and I need to make
Yeah,
money for a living.
definitely. Like,
But I'm not my job. I'm more than my job. And that is a perfect answer. I love that. I love that. So, folks, I think that's going to be a good show. It's on a good start. But now I'm going to ask you, outside of like who you are personally, let's learn a
yeah.
little bit about like on the professional side. Like, what do you do?
Okay, on the professional side, I'm a developer advocate for a small startup based in the US, known as Smallstep Labs. And at Smallstep Labs, we're in the business of building solutions that leverage public key cryptography and certificates to build security, high assurance security solutions that help organizations restrict access to sensitive resources to only company approved devices and workloads. Yeah, in summary.
That is a complex problem to solve, but like something that like every developers need. So it seems like it's an interesting challenge. And you told me right before the show, and I think I've seen this on Twitter too. You were giving a talk at a conference. You are right now in Singapore, and bear with me, people. She is on the show, and it is midnight for her.
It's
So
midnight.
thanks for being on the show. Hopefully you're not going to fall asleep while we are talking, but you still look like you have a lot of energy. How was what was the conference?
API Days Singapore, that's the conference. And I just spoke about using a couple of open source tools, Step CA and Step CLI, using it to provision certificates for local environments local development environment so as to keep maintain dev prod parity, so that if your production environments are running on like TLS and HTTPS, then your development environment should be too. And so I walked the audience through how to do that for web browsers and Kubernetes pods. So that was it was an interesting talk. Yeah. And now
Awesome. Yeah, no, I was going to say also I've never spoke or been to API Days Singapore, but I think I spoke to API Days in New York, and at some point I think they did like API Days Global or something. It was
Yeah,
online.
London.
Yeah.
I think this year they're also doing API Days Paris. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, actually, like the folks organizing API Days, they're French people. They're like based in France. So I think it started in Paris and like they went global.
Oh,
So yeah, they've been running that show for a long time, every year in multiple cities and countries. So yeah, I
that's
think we're lucky
impressive.
to have you as a speaker. I think it's great. I think it's
Yeah.
great. And prior to actually, you know what? Let me talk about developer advocacy. So you've been in that role. If I look at your LinkedIn for nearly 2 years,
Yeah.
but prior to that, you were a technical writer. How is it to move from a technical writer job to a developer advocate job?
Okay, that's an interesting question. And to answer that question, I'll have to actually move some years back before
Please
like
do.
I, got into technical writing. And um I think the answer would be that I've always been an educator. Like it's something that has been a constant in my life. As a teenager, during school breaks, I would gather my younger siblings, put them in front of like a a blackboard or like a whiteboard, and then you would go through their assignments from school or like projects from school, and would want to like teach them whatever it is I learned in school, and sometimes it wasn't even voluntarily. I literally forced them to sit and listen to me because I had to, I just had to teach something, So I think that has been a constant with me. And so throughout the course of my career, when I was working with Huawei as a cloud engineer, right, to when I, ventured into front end, I've always been an educator. If I find an opportunity to, create content around something that I'm learning or to teach somebody else, I was always going to take it. And so I think that evolving into developer advocacy was eventually going to happen for me because I spent a lot of time, creating technical content and teaching developers. Before I became a developer advocate, I think I was doing like probably like 70% of what developer advocates do in my, personal time
Mhm.
outside of my job. So yeah. Um
That is a pretty common thing. I mean, like many developer advocates, they started like on their free time to either speak at conferences or write blog posts or tutorial
yeah,
or like be more active like at meetups, even creating meetups. So like a lot of like people who at some point started to get paid to do what they were doing in their free time because as you like they were like, it was my case like they just wanted to share with people their knowledge, their expertise. They wanted to help people being successful. So yeah, no, it's a common pattern, and I always like to hear that because I firmly believe that like a job is a job. I mean, like we need that to make a living, and
yeah,
maybe we would do other stuff if we didn't need the money, like with our free time. But at the same time, it's a little bit hard for that specific job, developer advocate, if we're not passionate about helping people, if we don't care about other people, if we don't want to, like, if we're not excited about the technology we represent or the product. It's a lot. I was going to say it's a little bit, but it's a lot harder to like do a good job, even
yeah.
if it's still a job
I
at the end of the
agree.
day. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
always nice to hear
agree.
that story.
I agree because it's a lot of context switching, a lot of research. So if you're not, like excited about the product you're advocating for and the community you're advocating for, it's harder to do a good job. Yeah.
And so, how do you feel now that you've been doing that job for 2 years? How's it going?
Apart from the occasional overwhelm because of like the constant context switching, today you're doing this, tomorrow you're here, next tomorrow you're with product. It's a lot, especially if you're like in a small company that has like limited, you know, a smaller
Yeah.
DevRel team. Because in my company, it's just two people in the DevRel team, so it's a lot of responsibilities to share between the both of us. Um, but yeah, it's exciting for me because um, I get to experiment. I get to follow rabbit holes, and I'm paid to actually follow rabbit holes, and it's really exciting. So apart from like the occasional overwhelm, I love my job because like I find a concept that itches me, and I have the freedom to follow that rabbit hole, make something out of it, and then come teach people what I have made out of it. So
Yeah.
that's a pretty
No,
cool.
that's amazing. And I can tell you by experience that the overwhelming part can happen often and maybe sometimes all the time because there
Yeah,
is no shortage of what we can do. There is no ending, like what we could do to improve the docs, to write new docs, to write new tutorials, to write new blog posts, to speak at. Like there's always an events or meetup happening like every day, sometimes more than one, two, three events per day, and depending on your geography that you focus, like you have plenty of things you can do, talking to your users, getting feedback, bring the feedback to the product team. Like we do the job of like 10, 20 people. Um, the thing though is that like if you want to survive in a role like that, you need to learn how to like manage that part. And it's not about, I don't think it's about managing the stress of the overwhelming part. It's about maybe, and it's my point of view, people can disagree, but it's about accepting that you cannot do everything, and that you really need to prioritize, and you really
yeah,
need to focus on what's either more important for the business or what's going to bring more the biggest impact or biggest visibility, because I tell you, I've been been doing that for years, and like every time I moved to a new company, that was amazing because like I started with like a clean to-do list, and I was like, yeah, okay, now I have some stuff to do. It's not totally clean because like I started a role, most of the time I was the first hired like developer advocate, so I need to like build things, put things in
yeah,
place, or take the ownership. But it usually take a week, maximum two, and my to-do list is just like crazy long, and I complete one task, but I had like two, three tasks to my to-do list, because I write everything down that I would like to do. But even with that like overwhelming to-do list, I'm like, no, there's no way I cannot do everything. And once you internalize that, you feel a little bit better with the overwhelming, but everybody needs to, yeah, manage that
yeah.
on their own.
I think that's something I've picked up from my manager is moving. She will always say something like all ideas are no idea is a bad idea. It's just pick the most important idea and move the rest to
Okay.
backlog. And so there are like slow paced moments in like the business where there isn't like anything of priority, and then you can go back to your backlog and find something fun from there and pick it up. But like, you know have your ideas, have your to-dos, pick the most important, move the rest to the backlog, and that's really just it.
That's good. That sounds like she sounds like a great manager. Actually, that's funny because sorry about the noise, but that's interesting because I was going to say uh, it's also part of the manager's job to help you like focus on manage on the right thing. So if you have like a great manager that is more like a leader, then like will help you also to do that prioritize focus
Yeah,
depending also on your experience. Like when you become like more senior or more principal, like manager is a little bit less in helping you for the day to day. But especially when you start, when you have like a couple of years of experience, it's manager's job to help you focus on that. So it seems like she's doing a great job.
Oh yeah, she's like the
Uh
best.
yeah, that's awesome. I hope she's listening to that because she deserved the praise. And doing this in the show like that, it doesn't seem like it is genuine. If you share that, like it's a genuine sentiment you have, which is amazing. I mean, I don't think we tell our people as often has them like how amazing they are. And I think we should, but sometimes it sounds like we're, I don't know, sucking up to people like, oh yeah, I'm just saying my manager is good when it's not a reality. But yeah, obviously it should be like that. And it seems like Tabiloba appreciate and applaud either what you said or your manager. So I agree with that totally. So no, that's pretty cool. I was going to share a link from you, your website. It's everythingtechnicalwriting.com. Can you tell us a little bit more about like what is that website?
Oh, so everythingtechnicalwriting.com is where I brain dump. Um, so I have this habit of learning in public, usually on Twitter. So whatever I'm struggling with or something I've scaled, I usually share on Twitter. And I keep my Twitter DMs open because like I feel like I have gotten to the place I have gotten in my career because a lot of people were willing to help me and share their knowledge with me. And so I always keep my Twitter DMs open so that anybody who needs help or anything can always DM, and um, I answer to the best of my abilities. And so I created everythingtechnicalwriting.com because it got to a point and I noticed that I was getting the same types of questions or like the same categories of questions. And I thought, okay, I can't keep on giving every person an individual answer. So what if I, take all this, find the common themes in all these questions and start writing what I would typically tell someone if they ask me that question on there. And that's what that website is for. It's for career advice, technical writing, developer advocacy, and sometimes just general career advice. And I also started this thing where I haven't done that in a while because like my schedule has been crazy. But like I used to interview top technical writers from different companies, Google,
Nice.
MongoDB, just get them, chat with them, and just ask them about their career journey, how they got to where they are, um, important lessons that they've picked up, and just share that with my community and others. So anybody looking for career advice and looking for, oh, how did this person do this? I'm faced with this scenario. What should I do? And then you can find someone else who has scaled the exact same problem that you're struggling with and maybe get some insights on what to do based on their own journey. So yeah, the blog also has like a newsletter. I think roughly about 1,900 people are there right now. So yeah.
Wow. That is amazing. I want to come back on learning in public, but just before doing that, I really like you that you said like, hey, you use the website to write things that answers questions for people that you get quite often. Um, I also don't blog much anymore on my personal blog. I used to do it because I wanted to share everything and anything. It was not really a super technical blog. It was mostly about like me sharing about life and stuff. But I wrote a blog post once that was saving your keystrokes, and actually I didn't really came with the concept. I basically stole it to what's his name, Enselman from at Microsoft. Scott Enselman at Microsoft, who was saying like, hey, you have a limited amount of keystroke. You can type on your keyboard in your lifetime. I mean, like, it's not infinite. Like at some point, like we all gonna die, and like there's a limit
Yeah.
number of like the limit number of days we have. Like you have a limit of keystroke you can put on your keyboard. So if you're always like answering the same question to people over and over and over, and you have to write it again to each people, like why not write a blog post, and like after that you have that one link to rule them all. So that was the blog post. I basically like just rewrote a little bit about that idea, which was basically what I was doing with my blog. Like people were asking
Yeah.
me question, I was like, okay, I need to write about that. So sometimes even when people were asking me question, I was like, hey, can you wait a day or two to get the answer? And when people could, I was like, okay, I'm going to write a blog post and send you the blog post, instead of like trying to write you an answer saying I'm going to write a blog post at some point, like with the answer I gave you, but like that will never happen. So
Yeah.
that was my way to like yeah, setting keystrokes. So it's basically what you're doing with that website. It's like first it's helping people that even did not ask you the question, because they can find it on the web, they can find it on
Yeah.
your website. So it's great because sometimes people may be shy to like write to you, they don't know you, that you're busy. So it's just a great way.
Yeah.
Which bring me to, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, just yesterday, someone tagged me on Twitter and was like, "Oh, thank you for writing this article about how to submit talk abstracts. You know, I followed the tips you shared, and I applied to this conference, and I got in as a speaker, and it was just so fulfilling because, like, you know, the information I put out there is helping people without me even realizing. And I think that in a sense, it's doing that actually saves me time too, because now when people come to my DM to ask a question and it's something I've written about, I just go find the link and I'm like, read this. So I don't have to, you know, do the whole gymnastics of typing out a detailed answer all
Yeah.
over again. And it's lovely. Yeah.
It is, it is. And we have some Romanian people with us, Night Flight 89. Always nice to see you on the show. Thanks for joining us live. And coming back to learning in public, I wanted to touch base a little bit like that, because I feel like it's first, I would say it's a courageous thing. Like not everybody does it because you're afraid to make mistakes and people will judge your code. It's like contributing to open source. Like it's frightening when you start, because you're like, hey, I'm gonna submit code and someone's gonna review it and gonna say like it's good or shit, or it's gonna like basically like judge my like coding skills. But it's a little bit like it's the same when you learn in public, or even when you build in public, meaning that like you're basically what's the word I'm looking for, the word in English, but like you're vulnerable when you do those kind of things, because you're putting it out there, and it's not every learning moment that is like a genius moment. But with that said, like it's really important to do that, because you doing that would help people learn too, and that will also help you. You will create like great online content. You will work on your personal brand. So yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything about that. I guess I didn't really have a question, just like wanted to like say my mind about that, and just like
Yeah.
highlight that part because I think it's important.
Yeah. So yeah, learning in public is scary. And I think that so one way to actually overcome that feeling of like, you know, being judged or overly criticized is to frame your learnings as questions. So now you're inviting opinions and diverse answers from people. And
Oh,
so let's say you're, you know, building like a you're trying to like build out like a particular front end component, and you're like, oh, if you had to do this, how would you do this? Here's how I thought about doing this. You know, just frame it as a question. I think that lowers the feeling,
I
because
like that.
now when people are replying, they're not like criticizing, they're like, you know, giving their own opinion. Oh, this is how I would do it, you know. And so that encourages conversation and kind of like lowers that possibility of like being heavily criticized. So it was, I mean, that's how I stay getting comfortable with learning in public, you know, framing my learnings as questions. And
I
yeah,
like that.
that's yeah.
I like that. People, this is why I have guests, because they're way more brilliant than me and they share those like nuggets of wisdom that I love. I love that. I really love that. And maybe it's the like I think there's two type of people who will like comments on your learning in public. or three types of people. There's the people that still want to learn with you, so they may ask you questions because like they want to learn and they don't have the knowledge of the things you're learning. So those are amazing people because even by helping other people, you basically solidify your knowledge or you learn new stuff because you need to look for the answer before answering those questions. So this part is awesome. And there's people that will comment and that will really have like they will have it in their heart, like they want to help you, and that's going to be done in a nice fashion. Like they're not going to judge you, they're just going to say like, hey, did you thought about doing that? Like maybe that's going to
Yeah.
improve like the speed, or maybe like your code's going to be more readable, or maybe there's like that library that's going to help you to do things in one line instead of like 100 lines of codes that you did manually. So those folks are also amazing, because they really want to help you. But sometimes it's a little bit hard for the ego, even when it's coming like from like a good
From
intention.
yeah.
So this part is a part you need to learn to embrace, I guess. But all my point was sorry about all my point was to bring like bring the audience to the third type of people, or like just trolls, like people like there's a lot of like developers out there that have like super complex that feel like they're better than everybody else, and they will
Yeah.
criticize, they will be mean, pardon the word, but they're gonna be assholes there. There is a lot of them out there, and I firmly believe that they do not deserve your time, your feeling, your energy. And I know it's not easy to like ignore the trolls. Once in a while I go in a Twitter discussion to shut someone up that say stupid things to other people, and after that I'm like, why do you do that, Fred? Because there's no way you're going to win. You cannot have a discussion. So you need to learn to just like put those people aside. You don't hone them an answer, you don't own them, you delete. Like it's fine, delete the comment that are like obscene, that are not nice. You
Yeah.
don't own those people anything. It's hard to learn, it takes time, but once you accept that, it really makes your life easier, like learning in public. I think. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Toby was like, "Hey, I'm a huge fan of learning and building in public. I like that," and it was saying it's really awesome, and that we were spot on. Sorry, Toby, how they're coming back to back, but I guess it's applied to like all the discussion we have about learning in public, which is pretty amazing. Um, there's a lot of people that know developer relation. We listen to the show. There's a lot of people that even are developer advocates, because that show is for like developer advocates, developer DevOps folks, GitOps folks, like technical people around developer. But it's really open for everyone. With that said, it's still called the DevRels Show. It's why most of my guests are developer advocates. So I was curious, what does your or for your audience, like, can you explain a little bit what's your role exactly at Smallstep Labs, and basically what do you do? What did you do for the last 2 years?
Okay. So being in DevRel for close to 2 years now, I've gotten to understand that there are three sides of DevRel. There's content, there's community, and there's product. Depending on the company, some roles might, like what's the word now? Intersect, or like, cross paths with each other.
Yeah.
And yeah, so content, you have like heavily focused on creating content to drive awareness and adoption. And products would usually be dev tools with like APIs, where you're, you know, focused on like extending like the SDKs, um, writing documentation for APIs or something. And then you have the community part, which would be heavily focused on like nurturing the community, engaging them, and building champions out of that. I had to give that background because my role, my DevRel role at Smallstep, it's heavily content. So my role is actually to help our users and intending users make sense of the product. So I act as a bridge between whatever engineers and product people are working on and the people who will use the product. And so it's creating content that helps them make sense of a product and the ecosystem. That's yeah, that's what I've been doing for the past 2 years. And so is I'm in community forums and I'm looking out for what community members are struggling with, if they are struggling with, like, a question keeps coming up like, oh, what are Wi-Fi security standards? And I've noticed that question come up a couple of times. I pick that up and I make something out of that for future, um, for those users who currently have those questions and for future users who would have those questions. And so my role is, yeah, heavily on creating content to drive awareness and drive adoption of the product.
Yeah, that's amazing, and people need to understand that like developer advocate role depends on like the company you work for, depends on like on the side of the team, depends on like how if you are not the only person to do that, depends also like how the manager is going to split that. Sometimes like they split like the role by geography, so everybody does everything, but sometimes it's more like, hey, someone's going to be like more focused on online content or just content overall. Some people's going to be more focused on the community part, which doesn't mean that you don't do other stuff, but like your
Yeah,
main concern is like it's
just
your
that.
main focus.
Yeah.
Or even when you're the only one at a company, because there's so many things to do, sometimes it may go by phases. Like when I joined Q first, where I am right now, the big work that had to be done was content, like a lot of work to do on the documentation to improve the docs, to start to write blog posts, do tutorials, start to record videos, which doesn't mean that like I was still trying to grow the community, nurture the community, help the community, speak a little bit at conferences, but like it was mostly about like, hey, we need to be sure we have like a solid foundation when it comes to like documentation and online information for your users can be successful with the product. And
Mhm.
now the roles shift a little bit where I still do content, but like I do a little bit more of that or this. So really, it's a role that, as you said, like there's a lot of context switching, but there's also a lot of like focus to have or like specific tasks to do depending on the role, company, team, whatever. So it's amazing, and I love sorry that you gave the example about like, hey, I look in the community, see what they're asking, and that helps me to create content. I think it's the quote unquote easiest way to create content. Like instead of like trying to something pick something out of the hat and like, oh yeah, maybe I should write about that. That could be interesting. Like, no, you already have users
Yeah.
asking question, or you have users. What I always tell to like what I always do in my case in the community when people ask a question, it's either three things. Either they didn't read the doc, so this one is like, sorry, it's not my fault. Like I just point people to the right place in the doc. It's a code 18, and like the issue was like 18 inches from the screen. But quite often it's because there's a missing part in the docs. Like I
Yeah.
don't have anything in the docs about that, so I will answer the question to the folks, and I will update the docs after. But there is also the part where like, hey, it's written in the docs. That was clear for me when I wrote it, when I read it, because I have a better knowledge of the product. But like a new user is reading that part, it may be confusing, it may not be clear, it may just need to like have just one sentence to make something clearer, or a little bit
Yeah.
of things that you missed. And the good thing with that is that hopefully that question would probably come back, but again, you're going to be able to save your keystroke and like just point to the right place in the docs, and hopefully that will also minimize the number of questions from the users, because now you have like more tutorials about specific topics or videos or docs. So yeah, I firmly believe that that's the way to go.
Yeah. Something I always tell, aspiring like devrel people who like come to ask for like advice or like content strategy. I'm like, don't pull content ideas out of your ass, you know.
Yeah.
Don't, it's not necessary. You don't have to go look at what your competitors are doing or whatever. Honestly, the ideas are there for you. Look at your community, join, look at sales notes, And there's also an argument I like to make that DevRel should actually be more interested in the business side of things, you know, look at sales notes, what's the pain point that's bringing people in, what are the questions they always have in the sales calls, those are like content gold mines. Stop going outside to pull out content ideas that wouldn't move the needle forward. There are
Yeah.
actually content ideas within your community and your users and buyers that would actually keep reoccurring. So why you picking ideas from the
Uh,
cloud,
Yeah, yeah, no, no, and I agree with everything you said. Like, there's a way for DevRel to help the rest of the business while doing its job. So
Yeah,
now I don't have a sales team, but like previous company, I had a sales team, and I talked to the sales team, and I was like, you know what? Every time a customer asks you a question, and you don't know if there's a place to point, like to point them, like if there's a link you can send them, ask me. Either it's because you may not have found the right information in the docs, and I will point you to the right place. But if not, it's definitely something missing. For me, that helps me create like better contents or have better docs. In that case, that was mostly about the docs. I have better docs. And for you, hopefully, again, the same thing that I was saying before, maybe potential customers will not ask you that question because they will find it at the doc. But if they do, you won't have, our sales team were pretty technical, so you won't have to go through all the steps to help
yeah,
them with that. So yeah, no, that's important to do that.
yeah.
um
So something I do personally is that I do this thing where my Mondays are just for going through community forum, just catching up with all the messages and discussions, and then I look at sales conversations. They have this tool that they use to like transcribe their
mhm.
meetings, and then it stores it like as notes in somewhere. So I just go to that platform and I look at the recent one and I just read through, to just fish out interesting angles or like questions. And that's like a Monday routine for me. And luckily for me, we have this no meetings Monday thing. It's just like a 50-minute stand up on Monday, and that's like the only meetings we
That's
have
good.
on Monday. So that's just what I use my Mondays for. Just find what people are talking about and whatever problems users and community are having.
That's awesome. Yeah, yeah. And that kind of like set the tone a little bit for you for the rest of the week because you have
Yeah,
ideas like what you could work on. So that's pretty great. Toby was saying like that's actually a really cool role. The hardest and most my God, important part of managing the product or tooling is helping people figure out how to use it successfully with rich resources. I could not have said it better. Thanks, Toby.
yeah,
Uh, this is the thing I tell people. I once in a while I give a talk about documentation, how like the little things you can do to make it better, and how it is so important to have like proper documentation. And now I say documentation, but like it can be like proper tutorials or if you write blog posts or videos. But from documentation, text-based documentation is the foundation and everything. So you can have like the best product out there. If people don't know how to use it, you're not going to be successful. It's not going to work. So, yeah, having rich resources, has to be said, it's really, really important. Um, I just something that popped in my mind that you said earlier that I wanted to touch base and I forgot because life and we're having a discussion. But you said that your DMs are open, and you are able to be successful now and have your career because other people share things with you because like other people help you. And I think it's really, really important to when you reach a point in your career when it's possible for you not to focus only on yourself but trying to help other people. I think it's important to do it. I think it's great to do it because again, nobody none of us would be where we are if it was not from like a helpful manager or coworker or
yeah,
someone on Twitter or LinkedIn or someone who wrote a blog post or tutorial or just the people that like wrote the documentation from like the I don't know the SDK you're using. So it's great if you are able to, if you have the time to kind of like give back to people. And it doesn't need to be like super complicated. It can be like in the form of like what you're doing with your website, like like writing things that can help people, that can educate people, that it can help them to be successful. It can be like having your DM open, like you said. And I also wanted to plug a repo that I have. It's a repo for coffee chat. I call those coffee chat, and it's people
Oh,
offering free, like, I don't know, 15-30 minutes chat, like video chat with people, to either, ask question about specific technology, to have an expertise, or learn about how to start in tech, or learn about how to move to a new job. And so two things with that. I invite people to go there. There's a list right now. I think there's like 17 people who offer free coffee chat to folks. So first, you have a
that's
pool
awesome.
of people you can talk to, and I know most of them, they are amazing, friendly people, and they really do this from the bottom of their heart. They want to help you if they can. So please, I was going to say use those people, but you understand what I mean. Like, please schedule time with those folks, because they're just happy to help other people, and it can help you in whatever capacity that you want to. The second thing I want to say with that is that if you are in a place in your career where you want to give back to people, add your name in the list, do a PR, add your name in the list, and you can do whatever you want with that. Meaning that, like, if for you, you don't want too many meetings because you have your job, you have your life, it's fine. You can say like, hey, I'm not gonna schedule one, like one per month or one per week or whatever you want. You do the tempo you want. You can say like, hey, I'm offering 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour. It's basically up to you. It's between you and the people that contact you. But I know it kind of like require courage to do those kind of things, because we don't have the answer to everything or anything, and sometimes we're going to give advices that will be shit. I always start my coffee chat with like, hey, you know what, I may give you advices, take what you think is good, leave what you think is shit, because I don't have the only truth.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just nice to talk to people, and you may think you don't have enough knowledge or expertise or experience to do those. I'm going to tell you right now, it's false. Even like, you still have life experience, even if you don't have a lot of like tech experience. And if you does, there's always something you can talk to. And most of the time, like, it's not going to be a big discussion about like, hey, help me do my job for me, or help me debug like my application. It's often about like, hey, I want to move like to the next step in my career, or I want to know what is developer advocate, or now I'm doing a boot camp and I want to start as a developer. What are the tips for finding a jobs or stuff like that? So thanks, Toby, amazing OS project, I love coffee chats. Yeah, so now that you said that publicly and I put it in here, I'm expecting you to do a PR and put your name in the list, because you're an amazing people that can share with folks. So putting a little bit public pressure on you to do that. I'm joking. Obviously, you don't have to, but it's just great to be able to talk to people. And as I said, it's less scary than it looks like, and you all have everything you can share with other people. So just wanted to promote that. Not even to say like, oh, I'm so good, I create that repo. No, nobody cares. I don't care. It's more about like, hey, I want to have more people that know about those folks, and I want to have more people on the list, because if I look like Benoit just had his name yesterday, and I merged the PR this morning. He is a cybersecurity strategist, which doesn't make sense for me, because I do not that I do not care about security, but like, I don't want to talk about that. But he can talk about other stuff. But like, if you want to talk about that, you have Benoit there. There is people that have like specific expertise, but we do not cover everything yet. So the more people is going to have their name, the better it's going to be.
Yeah.
And now I got Tubby, who's going to do a PR soon. So I'm going to keep your words, my friend. So on that note, it's the part I like and I hate about the show. It's that I try not to be a time police, like a time cop on the show, because with my guests I could talk for hours. But even if you find it interesting, at some point I need to say like, hey, you know what? Let's stop the discussion. It's amazing, it's nice, but there's also like the more like the demo part of the show. And today, Linda, you're gonna tell us a little bit about like an open source project from Smallstep, and what that project is gonna help me to do exactly.
So project's gonna help you. manage certificates across whatever project you're doing. If you're working in any environment, internal environment that you need to provision certificates and automatically renew them or revoke them, whatever, for web browsers, Kubernetes, um, cloud instances. It's that's you found the perfect project for you.
And the project, is it because I don't have the link with me, but like if I go on GitHub, is it
Yeah, it's
the certificates repo?
yeah,
Is it yeah?
yeah.
Okay, because I want to share the link with people. And maybe if you want to maybe we don't need to go in the demo phase, but like maybe I don't know if you want to share your screen and like talk a little more about the like the repo and what it does. It's up to you. But if people want more information, it's github.com slash small step slash certificates, sorry, with a S. And yeah, it's free, it's open source, it's out there. And it seems to have like a pretty impressive list of features.
Oh yeah, it really does. And the cool thing is that paid product is a device identity product, and the entire thing is actually built on this open source project. Like that's the foundation of our paid project. And so there's Step CA, which is the online private certificate authority. It's like Let's Encrypt, but for your internal environment, because like public web CAs cannot issue certificates for internal TLDs. So Smallstep
Hmm.
and also cannot issue certificates for microservices or service to service communication. So Step CA is the Let's Encrypt replacement for that. So it's for a private online CA that you can use to provision certificates for all this thing. Now, one of the most common use cases is, I think that's what I was just telling you, something I spoke about today, is using using it to provision certificates for your local dev environment as a web developer. Because sometimes you're working on like um on localhost, and you need to try out APIs, that third party APIs that only run on HTTPS. Now your localhost runs on HTTP, and you've tried out like the API on Postman and is returning results. But then you write your fetch statement on your web app, spin
Mhm.
up your server, and go check, and you're not seeing anything. You open Chrome DevTools and you're hit with an error of like, oh, access whatever, or like a course error or something, and you're wondering what's going on. Well, that's because you need like probably that third party API, and a couple of APIs do this, like payments APIs,
Mhm.
APIs that carry like sensitive info, mandated that they can only be accessed from like HTTPS origins. And so that's like a perfect place where Step CA comes in, because now you can use Step CA to provision HTTPS certificates in pra- 5 commands. Actually, you install the CA, you get your device to trust the CA, you use the CA to issue a certificate for your environment, and your local host now runs on HTTPS. So that's a very common use case that most people use it for, but it can be used for so much more. Um, like I mentioned, it can be used for Kubernetes, it can be used for AWS instances. Just if you need, it's a powerhouse for certificate management,
Mhm.
and yeah, so
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. You are like project that needs to like have HTTPS, but there's some times where like even if it's working without SSL, it's still nice to have stuff. Like for me, I don't think it applied to the use case I'm going to say that, but like my router is a TP link, and like every time I access the web interface, it's HTTP only, and there is no way for me like to have a certificate. It's like just it's just pain me because it's 2024. Like everything like should be running like HTTPS. Everything should be secure, especially my freaking router. So I seriously like I know it doesn't matter much because like I don't think people can would be able to easily access my router externally. So it's mostly like a within my own network, but
Yeah.
it's annoying me so much every time I go in that interface that I'm thinking about like changing my router just for one that like I can like have like certificate to have HTTPS. So just a side story that actually now that I'm saying it does not
Oh,
relate at all with what you said, but like I was just saying like I'm annoyed
yeah, but
when like it's
it's
not
a
running on
use case that you
HTTPS.
can actually use
Oh yeah,
that for. Yeah,
okay,
yes. So it might take more what's it
yeah,
called now? More commands and like a little bit of configuration. But yes, it's a use case that you can
oh
use
okay,
that for. And paid products that Smallstep actually lets you issue certificates to Wi-Fi access points and routers,
okay.
so yeah, that's that's
I'm gonna look at that. That's gonna be better than buying a new router, which is doing the job. It's just me being super picky, and like I should not be too annoyed with that, but I am a little bit. So I guess
yeah.
that's gonna be a good thing. So awesome. So if people want to check that, the open source is on GitHub. I'm sharing the link right now, and if you want to move to one step forward, you can go on smallstep.com/product. The information is there. I like, some people get upset when like, oh, open source project, there's also like a pay tier, but like, please, people, come to the reality that like we need to
Please,
make
we have to
money.
make money.
I mean, like, I like having a
Employees have to be
paycheck, so
paid.
at some point, like, we need to sell stuff. So I think it's just normal. But what I love is that there's still like company that still have a respect toward open source and that does not desert the project the day they start to charge, or don't like put everything behind a paywall. Like you still can use the open source project, but like if you have like more enterprise level need
Yeah,
or really specific need, hedge cases need, like okay, now you can pay for the product. But the fact also that like the paid product is based on like the foundation is the open source project, it means that like the open source project is not going to go away and
yeah,
the quality is going to be there because this is how you make money after. So that's a great, from my point of view, that's a great way to like bridge the gap between like open source, which by the way, open source does not need to be free. There is nothing, it's free software is one thing, open source is one thing. You
it's
can
another
open the
thing.
source
Yeah,
and charge for it. It's just you're going to have to give the source to the folks that's going to pay for the product. But it's the conception, it's a misconception that like open source should be free, because most of the time it's free and people like it like that. But yeah, I've been in the open source business for a while, and every company needs to make money. Sometimes it's with like commercial support, sometimes it's having like that commercial product that had more features. But yeah, it's the reality. Unfortunately, we need money for a living, and that's a good way to do that. So just wanted to I don't know, clean a little bit like a laundry on the air about open source.
yeah.
This is
Thank you for
something that
that
annoyed me.
because
Yeah, this is
I,
something
I
that
I
annoyed
get
me a
that
little bit.
sentiment a lot of times, and sometimes users come in and they're asking questions, and you're like, oh, so the deal is we don't actually support this in our open source, but if you need it, you can just pay for it because we've done that on our paid product. And they're like, oh, open like an issue or an issue for that, and we're like, nope.
Yeah, no, no, it's on the paid
If you
product.
want
Sorry
this,
about
it's an
that. I mean,
advanced use case. If you
uh,
want this, just pay for it because we have to make money. So,
yeah,
but
yeah,
the project on its own is very extensible. I mean, everything that paid product can do, you can do with that. It's just you will have to. So we tell people that
that's gonna be easier.
it's perfect with for like home labbers or people who are experimenting. It's really perfect because you can do everything if you have the time. But in an organization where things need to move
Yeah,
fast, then just pick up a paid product. But if you're like a
yeah,
solo developer, a home labber, you're trying out new things, you're just learning, that's perfect.
yeah. And the thing is that like you're building there's a lot of chances that like if you need those features, those paid features, you're building a business, meaning that like you're using my product to build your business to actually make money. And there's a saying that say like you need to spend money to make money.
To make money.
Unfortunately it's life. There is not a lot of like free beer out there. So yeah. So on that note, thanks for sharing a little bit about a little more about your product. Thanks for the amazing discussion and sharing your wisdom about developer relation and plenty of other stuff. Before we say bye to people, is there anything else you would like to share with the folks listening right now or the people watching the recording?
Hmm. Um, I would just say go try Asian food. I know that's out of topic, but
No, no. I mean, with one of the guests, I sorry, I forgot his name, but like we talked about Lego for a while because he had like a bunch of those in the background. That show is everything and anything. So yeah, no, and I agree, Asian food is so good.
it's lit, it's elite. And I think I'm just saying this because right after my talk I asked my audience to like show their favorite
Mm,
restaurants in Singapore to me, and they someone recommended this restaurant that I'm just coming from, and the food I had there is just, it blew my mind. So please, find an Asian cuisine or restaurant somewhere, the highly reviewed ones, and go try some Asian food. That's my sage advice
Asian
for the
food is
day.
good, and Singapore is pretty nice. I don't know at that time of the year. I think I went in the summer. It was so humid and hot, but outside of that, like people were nice. It's a nice city.
Yeah.
If you have time, go see the sea lion statue, and like next to it, there's like that. It's their big, I would say mascot, more like logo or I don't know. I'm looking for the word in English, but yeah, it's a great tourist attraction, and there's like those big towers next to it where like you
Oh
can have
yeah.
like a drink on top of it, and the view is just amazing. But again, food is great. People are nice. It's just really too humid for me. But outside of that, Singapore is pretty
Oh
cool.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a funny story. I actually packed, you know, not heavy clothes, but like clothes with like some sort of like substance to it or some weight to it. And getting here, I just realized that they're not going to work because the weather here is just so humid. I
It
had
is.
to go look for where to buy shorts and some tees because like what I had were definitely not going to work for this weather.
I know. I like I went to Singapore when I was working at Fitbit. We had an office there. They probably still have. And I was speaking. We were doing a meetups there. So I spent the day at the office, and I was like, hey, you know what? Before the meetup tonight, I'm gonna go back to my hotel room, shower, change, come back to the office. I don't remember if it was 5 or 10 minutes of walks. Let's say like it was 10 minutes of walk, which is nothing. It was not even like up and down like sometimes in
Yeah,
San
it's like
Francisco. It
smooth.
was like just straightforward, and I just showered and I arrived at the office and I was drenched. I was so wet. I was like, I walked for not even 10 minutes. It was not about like, oh my God, I'm fat and like I can walk and like I'm sweating my life. No, no, no. That was so humid and I'm not used to it that I was dying. So yeah, so just funny story about Singapore. And before we let the show, we have two questions. So the first one, it was just I'd fly saying like, yeah, it's the bone, talking about Asian food. First question from Toby to you. Quick question: how do we join this awesome community? So the Smallstep community. Do you have like a Slack or Discord or?
Oh yeah, we have a Discord channel and it's on GitHub README repo for that the project. You'll find the link there. Yeah.
And I think I just found the link. So give me 1 second, folks. If you're lazy, actually, it's annoying to type Discord invite with the UID at the end. So go under README. That's going to be easier, but still sharing there. You have access to the Discord. And Tabi has a second question. Also, is this open source project accept contributions too? Right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yes,
Of
we do.
course. It's an open source project. Like
No research project. So yeah.
yeah, every open source project that don't accept PR, there's something wrong. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. When it's a company behind an open source project, you can have a discussion with people because there's some like there's a vision you have, and maybe it doesn't fit the vision, or maybe the people like didn't do the things how you would like it to be done, which is fine. You have a discussion. You basically you oversee that project, but like every company should be open to PR. Or be really, really clear if they're down. And I think there is something wrong because this is not open source. If you don't let external people contribute. So anyway, that was my 2 cents about the topic that also annoy me sometimes because there are so many companies doing open source wrong. But I'm really happy that Smallstep is doing the right thing. So on that note, people, just a quick thing to our sponsor, Q First, which they are my employer. So I'm a little bit biased. I have some bias here, but if you are in the cloud native community space and you want a production ready cluster, respecting the GitOps principle in minutes, and when I'm saying a Kubernetes cluster in minutes, people are like, hey, that's long. Wait a minute. You have a production ready cluster with like the things you need to be successful on it. So Argo CD, like infrastructure as code with Terraform and Atlantis, Vault to manage your secret, cert managers, all those tools and many, many more that are working together and configure. And after that, you're just, you know what, you're just ready to deploy your application in your cluster. You don't have to go through like the after like the day two to start to configure and install everything for you. And it's available on AWS, DigitalOcean, Civo, Vulture, Akamai. You can also try it locally with K3D, and we also released in beta K3S for people maybe that want specific installation on VM or want to do some own lab. So, on that note, thanks for another great episode.
Thank
And
you.
that
Fine.
goes to Linda because it's all about the guests. They are making the episode nice. So again, thanks for oh my god, thanks folks for watching us live. Thanks for sharing comments also and question. This is that makes the show even more awesome when you participate. So Toby, thank you very much, everyone. Great episode. Bye. So thanks everyone. Thanks also people watching the recording, and thanks Linda for being a guest on the show. That was amazing to have you. And now I will let you go to sleep because it's like 1 a.m. for you. You're probably super tired. But I need to say, if you didn't tell me before that it was that late, I did not see you sleepy. You were full of energy. So you deserve a good night of sleep after the conference and like doing that show. But thanks again of being on the show. Thanks everybody,
Thank
and let's see
you.
each other in 2 weeks for the next episode.